G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza. Happy Halloween. Today we're going to be drawing skulls, and what better day than Halloween to get into those lovely, lovely skulls. Now, anyone who's watched much of my content knows that one of my favourite aesthetic shapes and themes is anything to do with skulls. I love skulls. They're really cool, and we're going to break down to the basics today and have a look at some of the things that are good to keep in mind when drawing skulls. So basic sort of anatomical features and things to remember when drawing them, and then also maybe at them when we can kind of do a few distorted skulls and make some more horrific looking ones. But the first thing we do is we look at the basics, and so we have here a few examples that I'm going to draw over. Now, just before I get too into it, I just want to explain the program I'm using. This is called Mischief, and the reason it's quite cool to sketch in is because it's got what's called infinite canvas. So there are no boundaries on the canvas, and I can infinitely zoom in or out, which is really cool because it's vector based, and there's a lot of room for creative potential. So if you want to check that out, you can go to madewithmischief.com. The link is in the description. Anyways, getting started on this drawing, the first thing I want to look at are the cavities. So with the skull on the left, I'm going to select my brush and get a nice green, and I'm going to outline some of the cavities. So we have the eye and the other eye. These are pretty straightforward. They're very common cavities. Right? Now the shape is not a perfect circle. As you can see on the right, it's much more circular. It is a bit more oval, so it's a bit squashed. But here on the left, we've got this weird sort of shape. We've got this sort of, it's circular on the right, and then on the left, it goes in like that. And that's because it's a cavity, and the face shape follows around on that. So it's interesting. You kind of got to get used to using shape and have a feel for how these things kind of warp around each other. But it's something to keep in mind, and we're going to do a few side-on skulls, and you'll kind of get a feel as to what it looks like on another angle. Now the nose is broken up into two cavities, but we tend to draw it as one quite a lot of the time. I do, personally. So that there is the nose cavity, and now they'll have these cavities down here. Alright, so the main one is this one. This is the opening up of the jaw, and you can actually feel it. If you get your fingers and put them on either side of your cheeks in here, you can feel the edge of your teeth, and if you open and close your jaw, you can feel that opening on the cavity on the sides there. So that is what that area is. But up here, I've got another cavity, and this is what I believe opens up to being the ear and all that. Now, do keep in mind as we go through this tutorial, I don't have any medical training, so I don't know the names of a lot of these anatomical things, and I often might state something wrong, but the point is, it's about creating the visual portrayal of these things, so ignore my flaws. Okay, so here on the left we have cavities. Okay, so moving along, next I'm just going to outline a few key features of the skull that are kind of cool to keep in mind, right? So we're going to start looking at the ridges and bits that pop out as opposed to the cavities which pop in, which stick in. So the first is here. We have the brow. Okay, so it's the fatter bit, both at the top of each eyelid. Okay, now this sticks out, and I'm just going to do this little highlighty mark here to represent the bit that pokes out the most. Okay. Next we have this ridge on the top of the nose. Okay. This is, you can feel it here. It's what we call the bridge of the nose. That's the unscientific term. And some people have quite a long bridge, which is where we get those long crooked noses from. Some of them have quite a wide bridge. Some of them have an off-center bridge. We get broken noses. But when we're drawing a nose on top of the skull, this is where it originates. It's this bridge of the nose where those nasal cavities come out. We have the cheeks. Okay. Now, these are quite useful in portraying characters. High cheekbones or really prominent cheekbones tend to portray an either masculine or really drawn, aged sort of character. And then we have down here the chin. I'm just outlining there where it pops out most at the bottom. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with just pointing out those things, and if we move along to our last area, I just want to go into the basic shapes for when we use construction lines and draw our skull. Okay, so the first one, as you can see, the skull is in two parts. We have the top half, which is divided along here, and then we have the jaw on this half. Okay, so the top half, we draw a circle, which is a little elongated. And now when I say a little elongated, I really mean a little. Okay? Ugh. I tend to have to redraw a few times to get the line right. It's still not right. Oh, the wonderful wonders of Control-Z. Okay, so that's the first shape. Now, if I'm drawing a skull on this angle, I tend to pull out the front from the edge of this circle. So just from here, it goes straight down. Okay, then I tend to square off the end and then bring it up, and I either curve it up like this, just have a round sort of shape, or depending on the character type, if he's got a broad build. Okay, so they're the construction lines, and this is kind of the what do you call it? It's like a faux skull. It's like a fake sort of skull that I can use for the construction base of other drawings. So these are just a few of the things to keep in mind when you're drawing your skulls. You have your cavities to remember. You have your basic ridges, so you have the top of the eyes, you have the cheekbones, which pop out mostly at the sides more than the front, so it's a bit more sidewards. Then we have the bridge of the nose, and then we have the chin just jutting out, and then we have the basic proportions of the skull. Okay, so with those handled, let's just draw a front on and a side on skull. Okay, so I'm going to come down here. I'll zoom out a little bit. The shortcuts that I'm using are Z, which allows me to pull in and out, and then H, which allows me to kind of nudge along around the canvas. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to just draw up my basic skull construction lines. Okay, so I get my color to a mid-gray. Actually, I might as well just use black and just draw lightly. Okay, and I'll bring up the width a little bit. Cool. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is draw a circle. Okay, so I tend to go around a few times just to get the feel of it, and then draw dark lines when the hand is over the right place, when the mouse is over the right place. Okay, and then I want to draw a vertical line straight down the middle of it. Okay, now I'm going to just draw a few guidelines across here like this, very lightly, so that when I draw my other circle, it's roughly the same size. There we go. Okay, now I don't want a middle line on this one because this is going to be a side-facing one. This one's going to be a front-facing one. Okay, so on my front-facing one, I want to just bring in some lines. Now these are tapered in ever so slightly. Okay, so they're not straight down vertically. They're tapered in very slightly. And then when we have a bottom jawline set, which I'll put around here, I'm just going to do another light line across here for later. I'm going to taper in from these edges. Okay, so you can see how we've got the square jaw at the bottom and a bit of a drop from here where the ear would go down here. Okay, so that's the basic skull shape. Okay, now for the side on one, I'm just going to go straight down, a line straight down the front. Okay, and then I'm going to draw squared off, straight back, and then up like this. Now, on a side-on skull, it's not a circle. We actually want to elongate the skull. So I'm going to pull it back a bit to about here. Okay, so it's a bit more of an oval. Okay, so we have circle, and then we have oval. Circle, whoops, oval. Okay? So with the oval shape, I'm just going to bring the jaw back a little more. Okay, now I'm going to start doing some refining features on this skull. So on the one on the left, I want to draw in the eye line, which will be around where these two lines meet, the dropping of the jaw. Okay, and I'm just going to go straight across like this. This eye line meets all the way across. Okay, this is just going to kind of guide me as to where the eyes and the nose goes. So first things first, I'm going to use this crossing section here in the middle to begin the nose. Now I'm just drawing it as one, even though it is in two sections. I'm just drawing this one shape because I tend to like having it like that, because that middle bit does break or is a bit too much of a detail to worry about at times. Okay, now here on the left, it's interesting because all these things are much different. In the front shape, that's what we've got, but on the side we actually have the brow come in first, and then we have it inset and then pop out like that. Okay, so that shape will begin and end like this. Okay, it will come in like that, because when we're drawing the nose, it will actually end up going on top of it like that. Now as you can see, that angle's a bit steep, so I'm just going to bring that in. Okay, cool, so I'm happy with that nose line. Next I'm going to do my eye line, not my eye line, done my eye line. Okay, so on the front on view, I'm just going for a slightly squared off oval shape. Now it's quite hard to draw completely symmetrical, so there will be imbalances. Just keep that in mind. It's quite difficult to have a very symmetrical drawing because our brain really picks up the mistakes. Just going to quickly squiggle those in. And as you can see, the front shape is fairly straightforward. Okay, but when we get to a side-on shape, it's a little different. First of all, we have the rounded outside edge. I want to make sure that we're meeting up at the same places, so it's a bit higher. Okay, and then we tuck in, but then instead of rounding it out like that, it actually is going to dip in a little bit, like this. Okay? Because it's flowing with the geometry of the face, and the eye is concaved. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with that line. You can see basically what I mean though, and it's like I said, it's the kind of thing that comes with a bit of time and practice and understanding shape and all that stuff. Okay, so the next thing, I'm just going to very lightly draw a line across here like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is use this as a bit of a guideline for the cheekbones. So I'm going to have a line out here on the edge, pop it out like that, and then follow this line in slightly. Okay, so I'll just do the same on the other side. Have this slightly rounded inner edge, then this outer edge into the cheekbone. Then when we get to this light line here, I'm just going to bring it in, tuck it under. Now at about the halfway point, and when I say the halfway point, I mean between the width of the skull. Okay, so we have the halfway point of the skull. Now at the halfway point of the halfway point, okay, which translates to being about there, we bring it down. Okay, and do that on either side, and we're going to round out where the teeth go. Okay, so it's actually a bit more space down here for the teeth than you might be comfortable with, simply because the nose would actually be down here. The nose doesn't end where the nose cavity ends on the skull. Okay, so I've got that, and now I'm going to just draw my jaw cavities and shade them in. Okay, and we have the bottom jaw down here. Now, to follow this bottom jawline, we're actually going to bring it in a bit, because this basic outside construction work that we've done is a bit more fleshy than we want, because the bones are a bit more bony, ironically. Well, not ironically, that's not ironic at all. I'm not good at words. So I'm just going to kind of use these little waves. That doesn't make sense. I'm using these sort of shapes. So we go invertedly and then have the outer edge, and then we invert a little bit, then we get to the other edge of the bone. Okay, so we just kind of have a bit of movement, these waves. Okay, now of course skulls can change, and you can have thick, you know, sort of bottoms, or, you know, everyone has a different sort of skull, but we're just going for a sort of medium sort of skull shape. This could be a boy or a girl, but you know, you can do things to make it appear more masculine or feminine. Okay, so we've got the bottom half of the left side of the skull. I'm just going to refine now the bottom side of the right side of the skull. So I'm going to go here to the profile, where I'm going to just sketch across this line for the teeth, so we can follow that. And here at the bottom of the nose, it pops out like this. Okay, so that's actually where the teeth are going to go. Now I'm going to do a similar thing here. So notice how I did here, that line under the nose, that just kind of bends down. I'm going to do the same. It's almost like we have this strip between here and here that we're replicating between here and here. Okay, just very lightly. And I'm going to round out here on this edge inside near the eye, and it comes up into the cheekbone and then bends down into the jaw. Okay, now at the halfway point between this line and this line, we have the teeth begin, and they go quite far back. Okay, and I'm just going to bend this line all the way up and around, because that actually follows a bit of the shape within the skull. Now this might not be completely anatomically perfect, but we're getting the idea. Now we have the teeth jut in a bit, and then we have the jaw pop out. Okay, and then similar to how we've got it here, we kind of follow the flow and curvature of the basic sketch that we've drawn. Now, we're going to create the, what do you call it, cavity for the bottom teeth here, like this. And then we have another cavity, which follows out under here. I'm just kind of looking at a little photograph I have of a skull, just to make sure I'm keeping things fairly anatomically correct. Okay. There we go, shade that in, and there are our two cavities for the jaw. And now I've got the basic shapes of the skull done. Up here on the left, you see how on the right I've got this shape here, this line that flows in, and it shows sort of an indentation on the skull. If I were to shade it in lightly, you can see that that's basically what that represents, is a slight indentation in the skull shape. So to represent this on the left, we actually just bring the cheekbones up almost into a vertical line, so it doesn't follow the shape of the round part of the skull. Okay, but the round part of the skull is still there, so I'm going to draw that in. And we see we go outside of that. Okay, and that shows the indentation, so I can slightly shade that in just to represent that. And also, if we want to show the ridges above the eyes, we can just lightly do a line, oops, on top and away from each of these eye cavities. Okay, and if you want, you can shade it in and all that, but I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Same with the top here. Oops, I'm going to actually draw the ridge a bit like that. And now I'm going to just draw the outside edge of this skull. Okay, so these are some simple skulls that we've just drawn. Now when we get to the teeth, the first thing that I draw when I draw teeth are the two front center teeth. Now they're always kind of the main part of they're the main two teeth that are always kind of there. So I draw the two front teeth, and then everything can follow on from that. So same with the side one, I'm just drawing one because it's side on and only one shows. Okay, so then next, you cannot use your own teeth as reference really. So the next one is a bit shorter, but it's the same sort of shape, and we just do one of those on either side. Okay, same here on the right. Okay, next one is a bit more of a fang, isn't it? It points down a little bit more, like this. But still same at the top. Now everyone has different teeth, of course. You can do manky ones and all this stuff, but like I said, we're just doing this as the basic sort of guide. And then we start just doing a few randoms, and they thicken out towards the end. They get a bit wider, but they're also quite a bit hidden. So I tend to not bother with counting teeth because it doesn't really matter. People don't care that much unless you're a dentist and you're really into drawing, in which case I apologize for insulting the integrity of teeth. Now in drawing the bottom teeth, I can just do these little semicircle things. You want to make sure you have that semicircle line because they don't just sit there, they kind of merge into the skull. And there we go, we've got the basic skull. Now this is a bit low, I'm just going to make a few tweaks. So I'm going to alter this jawline slightly. Okay, I'm just going to shade back here, shade back here. and back here. Okay, cool. Now I am very happy with the result. I hope you get the basic idea, and you can use this method and kind of turn things on an angle. Try drawing them on different angles. You can use this as a reference as you want. If you check out the link in the description, there will be a reference to download this, so you can either use the file in Mischief itself, you can get a free trial on the website, or there will be an image rendered so you can kind of have a look at it and have a bit of a reference if you want to, you know, just have it to look at. And now just over here on the right, I'm just going to draw a bunch of random looking skulls just for the fun of it. So I'm going to add a new layer, and let's have a bit of fun with this. So let's begin with our circle shape. Now what happens if we, for the jaw, instead of drawing a properly proportioned jaw, really draw a small one like that. Just have it pop out, okay? So you can see how different the proportions are between this skull and this skull. Okay, so it's going to look really weird. I'm going to have a really low eye line, but really big eyes. Okay? And remember having the indentation. Let's have the nose. Let's have the nose quite high and wide. So we can really warp the face, or the skull, I should say. Big ridges. Okay? And then from there we want to make sure the cheekbones, so you can just draw that ridge there, like that, have the cheekbones come in, and then pop into the teeth shape. Going into the halfway line, have them kind of tuck back into the skull, and then I'm going to have that bottom cavity. I'm going to have a really pointy jaw. Okay? Now let's really pull the skull back and elongate it a bit. Okay, now this does look quite conventional, almost looks like a skull caricature, so let's mess with it a little bit more by doing some funky teeth. Okay, so let's just do two small front ones, then the side ones, and then let's do big beastie fang teeth, and then have the bottom ones overlap like this. So we've well and truly got a beast. There we go. Shade in the eyes. The nose. Okay. Make sure we have that back indentation. Fill in the cavities. Okay, so you can see that that's a pretty simple way to warp up a skull. Alright, and well, let's do one more just for funsies. Okay, so let's, what do we do for this one? Let's have a really broad one. Let's have this one facing the other way. Let's have a really long jaw, so this is going to come jut out forward. Okay, now my nose. Just your regular sort of nose. I'm going to have really wide and low eye holes. Just draw the brow, really broad brow, but don't bother too much with cheekbones. Then we have the teeth. So this one, the bottom teeth are the prominent thing. So we're going to draw the bottom teeth first because they are in front of the front teeth, and just draw the same sort of cavities as where you have the cavities in the other sketches. The eyes, the nose, and then under the jaw. Okay, then let's have a bit more of a square shape than a round shape. Really pop out the jaw here. So I'm going to just stick it out like this, and I'm going to have the edge have a bit of a indentation on the chin. That's how people get the bum chin, having a indented jawbone in the chin area. Alright, and you can see quite simply how we get that sort of cool beastie character skull thing. And, you know, it'd be fun to kind of draw these, come up with interesting skull shapes, and then draw characters' faces on top of that. See what happens if you create the construction work of the face, the skull, and then put the skin on top of it. You might get some really interesting results. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on skulls, and make sure to leave your feedback in the comment section below if you want to see different tutorials. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you later. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoy my videos. You can download the reference files from this tutorial by clicking the link in the description. And remember to share any art, animation or game you make on Newgrounds.com. Until next time, see you later.